Hey, and welcome back. I was recently approached by the folks at Lekato asking if I would want to test out any of their percussion products. And as I went through their website, the one that struck me the most was this sample pad right here. This is the PD708, and it's their latest and greatest in not only drum triggering, but a pad where you can import your own samples and build a customized setup. Now, I don't do a lot of hybrid drumming or electronic drumming, but this is something that's becoming very mainstream in terms of performing, especially on larger touring circuits where drummers are responsible for not only playing the variety of drums on their set, but they also need to trigger digital sounds, samples, and even run backing tracks. I know that there's a lot of products out there from companies like Roland and Alesis that do this at a high level, but I think something like this that's more in a entry-level price point could be appealing to some of you out there, so I'm excited to check it out myself and let you know what I think. So first things first, we've got a very detailed owner's manual. Looking through this, there's certainly a lot of functionality here, so this could come in handy with me since I don't have a background in this sort of thing. The one thing I would love to see that I'm not finding in here throughout is just a comprehensive list of all the sounds, because the advertising on this says that it has over 1,000 individual sounds, and that's quite overwhelming. And I imagine a lot of the pre-built kits are fine, but the real functionality that I would be excited about is being able to tweak this and build custom setups for different applications. All right, here we've got the power adapter, and it's got a very cool snap-on plug. My guess would be this is because they sell this product worldwide where not everyone uses the same sort of power source, so they can just give a different adapter depending on where it's going, and you're set. One thing I would have liked to seen is an IEC connection, because for me, doing professional gigging where I'm using all sorts of electronic equipment, IEC is the standard way of providing electricity to a product, but DC is okay. It's not a deal breaker. All right, so getting into the actual sampling pad, it looks very well made. The frame is plastic, but even on the high-end Roland SPD SX, I believe that frame is plastic as well. There's a ton of functionality on here, honestly a bit overwhelming for someone like me who primarily plays acoustic drums, but it's got a nice layout. It seems intuitive. On the front here, we've got most of our normal controls we would need: power, master volume, headphone volume. I love that that's independent from each other. We have an effects, which you can turn the volume up and down, or you can turn it on and off. We've got an all sound off button, which is probably handy if you're running into a problem where loops are running and you just need to quickly get everything to silence. You don't have to actually power it off to do that quickly. And then we've got an LCD screen where we would see all the parameters we're setting and some various buttons: home, sample, tempo, pad cue, BT, which I'm guessing is Bluetooth, and a few other things. We have 9 pads here. 6 of these are square block pads, and then the top row is 3 bar pads. When I've tried these sort of things at music stores, it seems like these top pads a lot of times are the loops or like cymbals. On the front panel, we have 2 headphone plugs, which is kind of odd to have 2, but I'm not going to complain about that. At least you're future-proof if you're using this with someone else. And then on the back, we have a ton of different inputs and outputs. DC power, master outs right and left, so you could do it in stereo, or you could just do it in mono with the left. We have a line in, which I believe is for connecting a computer or some sort of playback device like your phone, so you could play music into here as well. They included a little headphone adapter, which is nice, 1/8 inch to 1/4 inch. That's not required, you might not need that, but it's just nice that they include it and you don't have to buy it somewhere else. We have a gain knob, which I'm guessing is something you would set and not mess with much, which is why it's on the back as opposed to the front with the things you would mess with, as you're using it. We have 2 USB ports, one USB-A for putting in like a flash drive, I'm guessing if you want to import sounds, and then USB type B, which is the kind of connectivity that you would use to connect this to your computer to control it, maybe with a DAW for sampling and recording, or affecting the sound and layout here with their software. MIDI in and out, which I don't really use most of the time. I just use USB, but it's nice that they have it for people who want that. And then we've got a whole variety of inputs for adding more triggers to this or pedals. There are 4 inputs here for adding more pads. So you could get like the electronic pads you see in a drum set and add that onto here and program more sounds, or connecting a pedal for some of the bass drum stuff. Because even though there are kits where you can hit a bass drum with your hand, that's not the same sort of muscle patterns that we're used to playing on a kit. So that's some nice expandability, especially when you consider that this comes in between $400 and $500. I say that because when I went to Lekato's website, it was selling for $499, and when I went to Amazon, it was selling for $430. But then I also found a listing on Amazon of this exact unit, the PD708, with a stand and mount, and that was selling for $399. So get whichever one is cheapest. And while we're on the topic of using a stand, on the bottom here we have these 4 holes and this flattened section, which you'll see on a lot of these sampling pads where they have a mount that fits here with a plate and then a small knob here that you can connect to various types of percussion hardware. So that's nice that they have that on here, along with rubber feet if you want to use it in a tabletop mode. Now, I don't have that bracket, so I'm not going to be able to hook it up in that way. I could throw this on a snare stand. I'm sure it would work. But for our application today and testing it out, I'm just going to leave it here on this tabletop. So upon powering this up, the first thing I notice is these LED lights here. This is really handy for a couple reasons. They change colors depending on what kit you're on or what sound it's triggering. But also, if you're on stage in a dark environment, these LED lights kind of create a grid so that you can more easily distinguish where the pads are, because the unit is black and the pads are black. So if you're in a dark room, it might be hard to see where each pad is. So that's nice there. This first kit is just labeled basic kit. So I'm going to go ahead and try out the different sounds and see what it's like to play a groove with it. So I'm noticing when you strike a pad, the color changes to red. And then when the sample ends, which for a crash cymbal is going to have some decay to it, then it turns back to blue. So again, nice to have these LED lights here to kind of indicate what's going on. Okay, and I'm guessing that would just keep going. I was kind of waiting for the loop to end, but it seems like it'll just keep looping over and over again. I'm guessing some of these other pads might be loops as well. Okay, bass. And that would be like guitar strumming. That's very much like the 808 Roland kits. That's useful. That's the kind of stuff that I would want to use on a pad like this, where it's like those sounds might be in a pop song that I'm playing with a band, but I'm not going to haul around like tabla or a djembe or different unique bells for one song. There we go. There's some of those sounds I was looking for. It's like a sleigh bell or something. Now, for me, I think the real functionality and test and benefit is going to come from being able to load in my own samples and build my own kits. I think that's the much more practical purpose for, again, theater work, sound effects, and building some personalized setups for hybrid drumming with a drum set. I have 9 pads here, and if I was putting together one kit to use with my drum set, I'd probably want one of those bass drop sounds, a hand clap sound, wind chimes, and then some other digital snare, digital kick type sounds to augment the acoustic sounds, because a lot of pop music has those sounds incorporated into it. I'm going to go ahead and try to get this set up with my computer and see if I can get the software to work with importing some of my own sounds and how easy that is. And then I'm also going to mess around with the Bluetooth, because on the website, they say that this has Bluetooth 5.0, which is supposed to be pretty fast in terms of latency. And you should be able to connect this with your iPad to use with an app like GarageBand. So instead of playing the drums with your fingers on the screen, you could connect this to it and actually play it on these pads to record some demos or whatever you're doing. So I spent a fair amount of time trying to get the software downloaded and connect up to the pad on my computer. And the biggest hurdle was just trying to find the actual software on Lekato's website. I wasn't able to find anything on the PD708 product page, which is the latest and newest version of this. But when I went to the PD705, I was able to find that software, and I downloaded it and tried to get everything to connect, and I just couldn't get it to work. So I really can't provide much feedback in terms of loading in your own samples. But if that does end up working and gets worked out over time, I'll make sure to report back in the comments. Other than that, I did mess around with using the foot pedal inputs, and I actually just used this piano damper pedal. So really not a great solution, but I don't have a foot pedal to connect to this. And this did work. It just was really hard to play with because I don't think this is designed at all for doing bass drum triggering. I also spent some time connecting this with my iPad and GarageBand. And again, I found the latency between Bluetooth of playing the pad and then hearing the sound through the iPad to not really be good enough for me to actually play along. It was just too distracting with the headphones in terms of the time it takes to hit the pad and the time it takes to hear it. I think you're much better off just hardlining something like this. So to wrap up this video, I want to thank Lekato for sending this out for me to try. It's not something that was really on my radar that I was aware of. I've only really known about the big brands like Roland and Alesis doing sample pads. I think this is pretty cool for people who have a limited budget. And when I think about the musical theater work I've referenced a few times in my high school students, this is something that maybe a high school could put into their budget to utilize in their yearly musicals. If you want to check out more of this product from yourself, I'll have links to both Lekato and Amazon where you can purchase this, and those will be affiliate links where you can also support my channel at the same time. So I'd love to hear what you think about it. If you have experience with any of their products, let us know in the comments, and until next time, thanks.